the final thing that I would say on that in terms of a fundamental or foundational element is, nothing happens in people's lives until they're willing to take absolute responsibility for them. And I think your level of success is directly correlated to the level of responsibility that you take for the things in your life. And if you're willing to take more responsibility, then you'll achieve more success, not necessarily straight away, because sometimes more responsibility means that it slows you down because you've got more to consider. But over time, it's you have a greater capacity to lead and in effect change, but you can't do that if you're not responsible. And that doesn't mean fault, as you know, for our work. That's not about who's at fault, but I believe responsibility is the ability to respond to circumstances.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the High Performance Management Podcast, episode 16. Today, we're joined with none other than Calvin Coyles, CEO and founder of Wild Success. And thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, Corey, my pleasure.
Beautiful.
My pleasure.
Let's start. The name of your company, Wild Success. I think it's a really, especially now with everyone being coaches and trying to do extra income and social media is painting success in one perspective. What's your personal opinion on what success is?
Great question. For me, Wild Success is very simple. It's about living life on your own terms. And that the beauty of that is that's not a zero-sum game, right? I don't have to live my life at the cost of yours. We can both live our best lives because we all have different goals and dreams. And unfortunately, with social media, it's a powerful tool, right? Because it can give you inspiration of what life could be like. But often, if people don't have any direction, then they'll just accept the direction that's in front of them that's sold the best. And that doesn't ultimately lead to fulfillment and happiness. So for us, Wild Success is an acronym. So WILD, the acronym is wellness, income, love, lifestyle, and direction. And so how do you have success in every area of your life? How do you have a holistic life so that, you're not sacrificing more money for, health and fitness, or you're not sacrificing a career for your marriage? How do you have it all? And that really is just about being intentional about what you want. And for me personally, that's freedom. That's the ability to create incredible experiences for people that I love. It's the ability to have choices in my life. And I love Oprah's definition of freedom, which is that you get to choose what you want to do with the day. And I've worked very hard to try and be in a place where I can do that most days, which is lovely.
Yeah. No, I definitely can see, for everyone that doesn't know, I worked briefly with Calvin, and I've seen, recently, we were just talking about it before, then making that journey into, really prioritizing that fitness again and, living that wild life, which is what you're preaching, which is awesome. I really like that, coming out with the acronym. I think everything starts from one point. So obviously where you've got now looks great, but it's not as linear as just starting it and 2 years, 3 years, 5 years in. So how long have we been doing Wild Success now?
It's actually this weekend we're launching our book, and it's actually the 10-year anniversary of my first ever event. So a decade ago, I was at a local library doing an introductory night about how to get more clients, because ironically I needed more clients myself. So I figured if I have to teach it, I may as well be able to do it. And yes, we started a decade ago. But even before that, the journey was in process beforehand. So as you know, Corey, when we talk to clients, you will often say, hey, when I started this business a decade ago, 23 years old, I was $40,000 in debt. And we were able to go from that position with no money, no resources, no connections to making 100,000 in 90 days, $1 million in 10 months. But I didn't really make 100 in 90 days or $1 million in 10 months. Yes, that's when the business started. That's when I started making that money. But really, the journey started way before that, because I was building the building blocks without really knowing that was leading to success, right? Like Steve Jobs talks about the idea you can't connect the dots looking backwards. And for me, you can't connect the dots looking forwards. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. And now I go, I realized that, there was pieces of the puzzle that were coming together to set me up for success, decades and decades ago, that now are what we do every day.
Yeah, and I know that for a fact because, seeing your process and how we've done it and speaking to some of the clients that you work with, it is a process, isn't it? There's foundational things that you got to understand first before we get to the next level. And just like you're doing now you're at a point where you're scaling, and that's all new problems that you're getting.
Yes.
Let's go, because with the listeners in mind,
Yeah.
starting, like you said, it wasn't just a 10-year journey. It was everything up until that point also. So
Yeah.
what would you say for the listeners out there who are, they're wanting to live that wild life? What's kind of that first stepping stone, that first foundational layer that, you connecting the dots looking back was kind of the thing that brought you to, on this journey you're on?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that there's a couple of principles that I think are really powerful. In terms of my origin, for me, it was pursuing a great opportunity that was in front of me at the time. And that wasn't about business at that point. For me, I really just pursued what I was passionate in. And so for a lot of people out there, I think in the world that we live in today, sometimes we can put too much pressure on things when it's not necessary. So in the early days, you're not going to be able to monetize necessarily. You don't have the skill set to do that. But what you might be able to do is you might just be able to pursue something that you're passionate in. And I'm a big believer in just sort of pulling on that thread, so to speak. So for me, when I was in primary school, I got interested in performing arts. And my auntie was big into Jamiroquai. Remember the artist Jamiroquai when he came out? I'm not sure if you remember any of his songs.
I'm ruining your story. No, I don't.
Yeah, that's right. Fuck you. If you listen to Jamiroquai, you probably would have heard his song. But so I got passionate about that, and so I ended up applying to do this drama school. And I didn't realize how competitive it was. There was like hundreds and hundreds of kids every year applied to go to this school. And I was one of 30 that got selected. I didn't really know what acting was then, but that put me on a whole trajectory in life, because then I started studying theater and performance and acting and communication. And so I spent 5 years during high school studying to be a professional actor. And when everyone else was doing math and English and science, I was doing those subjects, but then I was not doing anything else except acting. So there's a book called it's called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, and I'm sure you've heard about it or read it. It's fantastic, especially for high performance. And he talks about how do you achieve astronomical success so that you're statistically significant. And one of the things that he found in that was that the people that achieve the highest levels of success have dedicated 10,000 plus hours to deliberate practice. And so I did the math, and during that 5 years, I'd already hit about 7,000 to 7,500 hours of practice whilst in drama school. So at this point, I'm now 18 years old, but I'm already 75% towards mastery in this particular craft. And I then leave, I go to university with the idea of doing law and commerce, and, beautiful serendipity. I never ended up finishing a uni degree in law, but my first day of law school, I went to like an orientation. And at the orientation, there was this group that stood up at the front and said, hey, we're an extracurricular group. We're an organization called SIPE, Students in Free Enterprise. And I was like, okay, this has got my attention. And they said, look, we've just come back from Singapore at the World Championships. And basically we build social enterprises. We build small businesses that have positive social good. And then at the end of every year, we present like an annual report. We fly to Sydney or Melbourne, and we basically pitch the CEOs of the top 50 companies in Australia about our projects and how great they are. And everyone does it around Australia. And the best team gets to represent Australia at the World Cup. And I was like, this is it. Like, this is what I'm here for at uni. Forget about what I'm studying. And so that gave me the ability to then learn all of the business acumen in a non-profit environment. And on top of that, obviously, at the end of the year, I was doing what I was great at, which was selling and communicating and the showmanship. And so then I spent another 4 years going through uni. And at the end of that process, then ended up going to work for one of the world's leaders in personal development. But again, that was just pulling on a thread, right? And when I'm meant to be studying for my final exam, I get an email from Chris Howard, who was my first major mentor. And he said, hey, I've got this session I'm doing around life coaching, becoming a seven-figure business owner and becoming a professional speaker. It's like a webinar. I'd never met Chris. I didn't know anything about him, but I sort of knew of him. And I watched this webinar instead of studying for my exam. And I ended up applying for a call. I ended up speaking to him directly, and he tries to sell me this course. I didn't have the money, but I said, look, I'll come and work for you for free. I don't know where you are, but wherever you are, I'll come live with you. I'll work for free. And just give me a chance and I'll demonstrate that I've got value. And I ended up spending 6 months living and working with him, helping him build his company and his businesses. And then we're at it now. So, every one of those journeys, I didn't know what that was going to unfold on the back end of that, but it was really just about pulling that thread of passion. Now, if I then take a step back beyond that, though, that's what I did, but someone else could do the same things and not get the same outcome. So what's the difference that makes the difference? I think first and foremost, I mean, there's a couple of key fundamentals that have allowed me to be quite successful. Number one is that you've got to have an absolute belief in yourself. You've got to have an absolute belief in yourself. You've got to have the belief in yourself that, hey, even if I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to figure it out. That I'm going to find a way to make it through this. And for me, that's been cultivated by, endeavor. So trying new things and putting myself out there and just, failing and succeeding and winning and losing. And I've always just believed I was capable of more than I probably am. So I think that's a powerful belief to have. I've also got a very strong spiritual belief. So I believe in spirit. I believe that I'm guided and I've got angels that support and guide me, and I connect with them. And so there's times in my life where things happen that shouldn't happen or that have no reason for them to happen, but I realize that there's powers at play. And I think even if you don't believe in something beyond you, there's definitely a sense that there's a serendipity to life, that sometimes things just conspire for you, whatever that happens to be. And when we realize that actually we've got this internal drive as high performers, we've got that internal drive, but we also need to create space for, you might call it luck, happenstance, coincidence, serendipity, or faith, to also just guide you and give you that extra little bit at the right moment. And I don't rely on that in the sense of I don't just not do anything and hope that comes through for me, but I hope that if it comes down to a toss of a coin or it's a 50-50 call, I hope that my effort in my industry gets me the 50% and then that gets me across the line.
Yeah.
And the final thing that I would say on that in terms of a fundamental or foundational element is, nothing happens in people's lives until they're willing to take absolute responsibility for them. And I think your level of success is directly correlated to the level of responsibility that you take for the things in your life. And if you're willing to take more responsibility, then you'll achieve more success, not necessarily straight away, because sometimes more responsibility means that it slows you down because you've got more to consider. But over time, it's you have a greater capacity to lead and in effect change, but you can't do that if you're not responsible. And that doesn't mean fault, as you know, for our work. That's not about who's at fault. But I believe responsibility is the ability to respond to circumstances. So if something's not going right, great, get back in a place of becoming a high performer again. And I'll give you a simple example. We're in the process at the moment of building an investment property. And we purchased a block of land. We've got a great project in mind. It's fantastic property. We've done a really good job of it. But the buildings had a series of delays. And we meant to go to a site visit 2 days ago, and it was meant to be completed. And it's a shell of a house still, like it's really behind schedule. And I've sort of let them run the project because it's like, well, hey, I pay you guys to do your job properly. I shouldn't have to manage you. But I've realized, hey, okay, well, where focus goes in, results show.
Yeah.
Sorry,
cut there. All good. All got to go.
Good. Where focus goes, energy flows, the results show. I realize I haven't been applying my focus. I've not been putting any energy into it. Therefore, there's no results. So what can I do with what I've got in this moment now? Let's get on the phone. I'll speak to the building coordinator and say, hey, this is what we're going to do from now on. You guys have not hit any deadlines. So I trust you to do your job, but we need better communication. So don't tell me 12 weeks. Tell me what's going to happen this week and next week and the following week. And then let's check in every week. And that accountability loop now means that you guys have got to be on your game. And so automatically I had that conversation on Thursday. By within 2-3 hours, I was getting email responses back and things were happening again, right? Because people just need to have that force of direction and to put those things in place. But that comes with me accepting absolute ownership and responsibility that if this is going to get done, it has to be up to me to drive it. And that's just part of the gig, right?
Yeah. I think you've said so many points I want to get on there, but talking specifically about, those traits that, that have made you, in your opinion, looking back,
yes,
get to the level of success you have. So belief, responsibility, what else would you say are there?
Yeah, I'm hungry. Corey, you know this about me. Hungry. I'm tremendously competitive. I hate to lose. I'm very collaborative with people that I love and respect, but I do need someone to chase. I need something to go after. And so for me, I've always been driven on the desire to want to make things happen. And that's very obviously valuable for us in a sales environment. But if you're an athlete as well, that hunger to get that next milestone. For me, I'm also very data focused. I'm really big on trying to measure progress, because I learned early on from a mentor, Tony Robbins, that progress equals happiness. And so I know for me personally, when I'm in a place where I'm growing, where I feel like I'm learning new things and I'm stretching myself, and I've got some sort of feedback mechanism in place to tell me that I'm making progress, that's when I feel like I'm the best, right? And even if I'm not making huge progress, it doesn't matter. It's just that I'm making progress, and that inspires me to want to make more of it. So I was just talking to you about this before we got on the air. I've lost about 17 kilos in the last probably 12, 18 months. And one of the things that's really changed for me was the start of the year I started running. Now, I didn't want to run. I hated running. I wasn't a runner. It was horrific for me. But my sister last year had done her first marathon, which I just thought was so impressive. And I was like, look, I want to do something to connect with my sister. And if we go to run and she's good at that's great, because then I'm going to be learning from her, and that's going to be awesome. So I reached out and said, hey, let's do this together. And she said, well, let's do a half marathon. And so I started training for that. And my first 5Ks, I couldn't run 5Ks. I was pushing Alila, my little girl, in the pram, and I would sort of walk and run. And my first 5 kilometers was like 35, 38 minutes. Like, it was real bad. And then, I bought a Garmin watch. And so it tracks the time. I was able to, just learn that I'm getting better. And so just every time I went out, I just try to get a bit faster and a bit better. And now I'm running. I did my half marathon a couple of weeks ago. I did really well. I got just over 2 hours in my first half marathon, which was fantastic for me. And now I'm doing another one at the end of the year. I'm going to try and get it done in about an hour 30, an hour 45. And now I'm running sub 5-minute Ks. I'm doing 25-minute or 20-minute 5 kilometers, and I'm just at a different level. Now I'm loving running, but that came from, first and foremost, setting a crazy goal, going after it, getting the right people around me to get some advice, having a way of tracking progress, focusing on the progress, not on perfection. I was very honest about the fact that I'm not great at running to myself in the beginning. I was going to struggle at that. And then just enjoying the process of getting better at something. I think that's not something that we're all very good at. I think if you're someone that listens to this podcast, Corey, we can be frank and honest about the fact that there are some people that are just built different. Jordan Peterson talks about this idea that there is a special group of people in the world, men and women, that are just constantly built for production, right? They just want to work. They are hungry. They're driven. They're making things happen. And so it's like people that ask me, how do you get motivated? It's like, hey, if you have to ask me how to get motivated, we've already lost this game. There's a different level of performance that happens when you're already crazy motivated. In that case, when I'm working with clients in peak performance, I'm not motivating them. I'm just channeling that motivation. It's like I've got all of this force of energy. I'm just wanting to direct it in the right way. So for me, I've always been like that. Even when I go on holiday, I'll read a dozen books on holiday, and that's my downtime, is just not physically moving as much, but mentally absorbing as much as I can. So I've always just sort of been built like that. And I think there's something that's beautiful that happens in life. And doesn't matter what endeavor it is, whether it be life, relationships, business, finance, your career, it doesn't matter. When people start out doing something new, there's this sort of sense that, geez, how long is this going to take for me to get it, right? Whether that be running or whether that be business, it doesn't matter. And then after a period of time, your body gets that muscle memory, you get the mind-body connection, you go from unconscious incompetence to conscious competence, and then unconscious competence. You get to a place where you have got, full capacity over that domain. And then the conversation shifts. And this is a really powerful conversation when it shifts. It goes from, how long is this going to take? Do I have what it takes? How long is it going to take? Whatever. It goes from that conversation, and then it flips to, how far can I go with this? And then when you make that shift, it's not about, geez, I've got to get to the top of the mountaintop. Now it's about, well, I've already got to the top of the mountain. What's next? And for me in business, when I go back to the early days, 10 years ago, it was like, geez, what do I have to do to get to that level? And then after getting there, it was like, wow, this is really, I've got a golden ticket here. Like, once I figured out, particularly Facebook marketing, that's really helped us. But once I figured out that, and I figured out that there's this process, I can generate a lead and make a sale and change somebody's life, and I can just repeat that process. It's like, geez, okay, well, what can I do now with this? Can I travel? Can I do retreats? Can I see the world? Can I make an income? Can I 10X? Can I scale? Like now it's a different type of conversation. Now it's not like, how do I find to keep my breath? Now it's like, well, can I run a sub 60-minute 10K? Can I run a 40-minute 10? Like then you start asking yourself questions that are performance questions.
Hunger.
Absolutely.
I love it. And so like just digressing, all of this kind of sounds like from that original, have a great crazy goal, progress, not perfection, loving the process. So
yeah,
like from me being a coach as well now, and learning from mentors like yourself and other people online, there is a process, and I think a lot of it, just even from what you're saying, when you first beginning, you had a great opportunity, and you go into uni and you met those people, and even with the whole drama thing and performing arts, there's a kind of an underlying thing of awareness there. What's like the importance of being aware of your thoughts, understanding?
Critical. In our work, we talk about this paradigm, Corey, as you know better than most, which is that awareness precedes change. So if you're not aware of something in your life, if you don't have the ability to be aware of something, it's very difficult for you to put in place any plan of action or any contingencies, right? I've got a little girl, Alila, and she's 2 years old. And, you see parents when we go to the park and the kids are running around and the parents like, be careful, right? Slow down. And the reason why is because parents have got a high level of awareness of what can happen. And kids are so in the moment, so present to this reality, in this little bubble that I'm in, they don't have an awareness because they've never fallen off a tree before, so they don't have that lesson and that life experience. So I think first and foremost, and I was asked this question last night, actually, and I said, look, awareness precedes change, but what precedes awareness? And I believe that that's having peace of mind or presence of mind and the ability to take stock of where we're at. And as high achievers and peak performers, we tend to learn we have 4 ways that we learn, but we learn predominantly for most of us in the first 3, which is learning by doing, learning by experiencing, and learning by thinking. We tend not to learn by reflection. And there's real value in that. And that's the power of mentors, because you can learn by your own reflection, but you can also learn by the reflection of others. And so if you can tap into that, if you've got the awareness to at least to know that there's some stuff that you don't know, and then to reach out to people that can perhaps give you an insight into the blind spots that you've got, that can facilitate transformation and change. And that's why I'm big on data and tracking and progress, because what most people don't get is that, life is a combination of snapshots, but those snapshots build to trends. And so when we're looking at things in life, we always say once is a fluke, twice is a coincidence, and 3 times is a trend. So if you're heading in the right direction, even if it's not great, oh good, it'll get there. But if you're heading in the wrong direction and you're successful now, well, there's going to be a period of time where you have a breakdown. And for me, what I found, and this is something real small, but what I found with weight, every day I jump on the scales. And there's a couple of reasons why I do that. One is I'm excited to hit some milestones, and I'm nearly at under 100 for the first time since 2019. So I'm excited to get under 100 again. I'm at about 101 this morning. So I'm tracking that to sort of keep me motivated. It's also a great way to keep me honest as well, because if I try to justify your bad food the night before, well, it shows up. But what I've also found is that traditionally, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday, Sunday, can be wild fluctuations, but my lowest point of the week tends to be on a Friday morning. Like it just happens to be the case that from a cycle that I tend to find that Friday is my leanest day. And so I don't really care so much about what my weight is on those other days. I care more about what my weight is on Friday. But that requires an understanding of an awareness that says, hey, this is an important enough thing that I'm going to pay attention to the bigger picture. Because you can be aware of what's your weight, but if you're not aware of what that puts into context of having multiple data points, it becomes really difficult, right? If you had a fight with your spouse, that's a data point. But that doesn't mean to say you're going to get divorced. It just means you've got to put that in the context of everything else that's going on. So I think
it could lead to that if those become trends, those snaps.
100%. Yeah.
And that's where the awareness comes in.
Well, I've got a mentor, Simon Bowen, who does some great work around models and, visual diagrams that explain performance and just make things easy for people. And he talks about this idea and concept of the green line and the red line. And it's such a simple model, but geez, it's great. So if you imagine you've got a red line that trends down over time and you've got a green line that trends up, right? So like this exponential curve going down and up. And we start at the same point in that story. And if you take consistent, great action every day and you're acting and engaging in the world in a powerful way, you're growing, learning, developing, etc., you're on that green line. And over time, you're going to index up, right? And you know, between now and a month or 2 months or a year from now, there's probably not a huge difference between the green and the red line. But over a long period of time, there's a massive difference, right? It's night and day difference. In the same token, if you stop doing the things that made you successful, then you're going to find yourself falling onto the red line. And I think that that's part of having a lack of awareness. And so Simon talks about the idea that you don't fall off the green line, you behave your way off the green line. I really like that. You behave your way off the green line.
And accountability, responsibility, isn't it?
That's it. So it's like, I'm a believer that life will put little pebbles in your shoe. And if you don't notice them, then eventually it'll give you a rock and you'll trip over, right? So the idea is that you got little signs along the way. And we just literally talked about this, Corey, before about, you know, I always thought before I gained a heap of weight, you know, how is it that someone gains 15, 20 kilos, right? And having then gained 15, 20 kilos and now lost pretty much all of that, it's not, you don't gain 15 kilos. You gain 500 grams 30 times in a row, you know? And when you are not aware of the fact that I gained 500 grams and then I gained another and another and another, if you're not aware of that, if it's out of sight, out of mind, if it's too painful to look at, if you're not aware of what's going on, or if you just life is so messy with all the other things, then very quickly it stacks. And then you go, geez, how did I end up in this position? Well, there's been signs all the way through that process. You just weren't conscious of them because you didn't have the awareness and the presence of mind and you weren't looking for those signs.
Very powerful, this. How can we foster that awareness? Obviously, it's like kind of teaching. It's like you can't teach someone to taste mango if they've never tasted mango, you know?
Sure.
What's some of the things, and like we talk about things that are measurable and that you can track and progress and data points. Yeah, I'm like this. It might be a bit of a hard question, but what are some actionable things people can do to start become aware? Because you don't know what you don't know. So it's kind of like, you know.
Sure. Yeah. So look, there's a sense that everyone has a limited awareness, right? If you were to do a pie chart, the stuff that we know that we don't know is inconsequential by comparison to all the things that we don't know, right? So that's always going to be the case. But that's not really the problem because most people are not doing very well with the stuff that they know, you know? So it's like we're not actually taking action on the stuff that we should be.
Yeah.
So there's probably a couple of things that will work for people listening. One of the first ones is that we've got a fantastic ability to build a bridge between our mind and our body. So physically, we can bring a great sense of awareness to our physical body. And if you don't have a great awareness of where you're at physically, well, that's where you live. That's your home. So we've got to be aware of cognitively where we're at, but also physically where we're at. I think it starts inside before it starts external, right? And so how do you do that? Well, for me, that's making sure I start the day properly. And that's with some sort of physical activity, some physical exercise. I normally will do a spin class or a run of some form on a morning, or I might go into the gym and do some weights or a sauna or something like that. Nearly every day, every day I do a cold shower as well and a cold plunge. And part of that is it's a daily discipline to sort of invigorate my body, but it's also a great opportunity for me to observe, how are you this morning, Cal? You know, because when I'm doing my spin class, it's to music and it requires a certain level of coordination. And some days that's easier than others. Some days you feel fitter than others. Some days your legs are sore, right? There's this, every day it's different. And so it's a great opportunity to just check in with myself and go, oh, fuck, you're on it today. Or, oh, I need a bit more. I need a bit more from you today, right? And so it's just great to, it's like, hey, if you had a business partner, or if you had a husband or a wife, and you wake up with them, you're probably first thing that you're going to do is you're going to check in with that person. You know, how are you today? You know, or at least you just be aware of their energy. Are they feeling a bit down? Are they feeling a bit up? Where are they at? So I think if we can build a greater level of connectedness to ourselves, that's the first step, right? And, part of that is, with that awareness, is how much of that is the sensitivity of our life as opposed to our ego, right? So let me explain. If it's winter, it's cold, you got to get up and go for a run, it's raining, and, your body goes, you're really tired, you should sleep in. Is that your body saying, actually, you've done really well, you deserve a rest, and right now we're a bit fried, mentally and physically, and our nervous system's a bit overcooked, so you'll get value from resting and recovering today? Or is that the ego, the shadow in your head going, just rest today, right? And part of that is you've got to be aware of which voice that is. And that's going to probably come from making the wrong decisions, right? You'll sleep in when you go, yeah, that's what my body needed. And you wake up and you go, fuck, what did I do? That was this terrible decision. And then there's other times where you go for the run when you should have rested and you're going, geez, I'm going to pay the price for that. But hey, you know what? I still got out there. I did the right thing. So part of that is just having that conscious awareness of where you're at. That's a great start. So physical movement, very, very powerful. I don't think you can be fully aware of what's going on in your life if you're not connected to your physical body. So even if that's something as simple as doing a bit of yoga or stretching, a bit of mindfulness. I love meditation. I'm just going to be honest with you and say that I don't do it. I'm the idea of me slowing down and sitting for an extended period of time I struggle with, but the times that I have done it's been very valuable. I have just recently got back into journaling, and so I've got an iPad and I write a heap on the iPad, but there's something physical about a journal and writing down your thoughts and feelings and getting it out on a page. So that's a tremendous resource, which is an opportunity for you to have that processing time, and that's meditative in and of itself. And then maybe that's also having some awareness as well of listening to things, whether that be music that you love or whether that be a podcast like this, because when you're listening to new things that are designed to challenge you a little bit, it causes you, if it challenges you, it means it connects with you and you realize there's a gap between where you are and where you could be. And so part of that awareness is surrounding yourself with great people that are playing a different game than you to realize, well, I didn't realize this is the way that life could be. What do you mean? What do you mean you guys are doing all these things and you're getting up at this time and you're making this happen and this is your like if I didn't know that. Now I know that, though. Now my eyes have been opened. Einstein said it so beautifully. A mind that's been expanded will never contract to its old way of thinking. And so you've got to, first and foremost, just get, okay, how am I at now physically, myself, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like just take stock of your life. But then beyond that, start playing in spaces where people are encouraging you to play a bigger game, because life will then give you that feedback loop. But if you're not getting a feedback loop, it's probably because you're not hanging around with the right people, because you are the person that's the feedback loop for everybody else. You're already winning by comparison to everybody else. So they're going, oh my God, that's so inspiring. But
all of the flies.
Correct.
Yeah. I love that. That's so good. And I love how this is all just stemmed from awareness. This is why I love doing this type of, podcast, because these are just like decisions that we made to have in this conversation, which invoke a thought process, and like this might touch someone and, create a thought process that never even came to.
I'll say on that as well. Sorry, Corey, one more thing is one of the great disciplines I've built over time, and I don't do this every week. Life is a bit crazy with a toddler and a pregnant wife and a business and just, it's crazy. But when I do it, it's very, very effective, which is on a Sunday night, I'll sit down with a notepad and the computer and I'll reflect on the week. And I'll reflect on my calendar, my time, my energy, what I liked, what I didn't like, what worked, what didn't work. I've got a really simple principle, which is get to versus got to. So what are the things I get to do? What are the things I've got to do, right? What brings you joy? What brings you frustration? In another choice of words. At the times in my life when I've been the most prolific, I've been clear on my goals. I've had clear outcomes and expectations for every area of my life. And then I do a review at the end of the week. Well, how'd you go? If my goal was to make a certain amount of money in the business, how did you go? If my goal was to go to the gym 5 times a week, how did you go? If my goal was to connect with my daughter and to spend time with my wife and to have a loving relationship, how did you go? And it doesn't matter if you win or lose, really. What does matter, though, is that you're aware that you lost so that you can make a change next week. And this is where a high level of awareness comes in, what you realize for a lot of high achievers is that we prioritize certain aspects of our lives by default. So I realized, over a decade ago, that my tendency has been that if I'm stressed or I've got a lot to do, I'll work longer hours, and that means I'll work later into the evening. But that has a second order consequence, because now getting up to go to the gym in the morning, almost impossible. Those times, especially in my 20s, where I'd work until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm not getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock to go to the gym. I'm cooked. And so what that meant was I just kept skipping the gym. So I get to the end of the week and go, cool, I'm doing great stuff in the business, but I'm not exercising or training at all. Well, what have I got to do? I've got to put a hard stop at work, and I've got to sacrifice making some growth in business in order to make sure that I've got physical connection and I'm obviously building my body. So balancing that out and just understanding your Achilles heel, so to speak, is critical. But that only comes through having that feedback loop.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I was actually literally just about to mention that. Like, the people that are at that point where they're starting to measure their progress, they're getting clear on what it is they want, they're trying to get around other people. But like we talked about ego before, that ego part that's around that old identity, because the identity is shaped by all those behaviors you have. But then once you move into the new ones, you've got to start adopting new habits, new behaviors, and you kind of have this conflict between the old you and the new you.
Yes.
What do you do about the times where you just you fuck up? You have those goals. You're motivated at the beginning of the week, and then like you said, you get that flat line on the Friday. Maybe you're not aware of that, and you're just like, oh yeah, no, I'll go hang out with the guys, have some beers, and then you kind of get to that plateau. What are you doing there when you notice you're not hitting those goals?
Yeah, great question. So for me, if you're in a place where you're just not hitting the goals that you've set, what we've got to look at is, where is the breakdown occurring? And the result is you didn't get there, but why didn't you get there? And I think that's the devil's in the detail. So in our work, and really what the book is about and what we're trying to share with the world as much as possible, is a methodology that you can use for personal performance. And that's 3 things. First is compelling vision. Do you have clarity on what you want? Are you going after something that's inspired for you? And that doesn't mean it has to be inspiring for anybody else, but as long as it's inspiring for you. So that's number 1, compelling vision. Number 2, internal alignment. Now, this is quite a complex area. There's a lot of meat in this bit, but with internal alignment, there's 5 things: your beliefs, your emotions, your behaviors, your focus, and then your values. And so traditionally, if someone's at a place where they're clear on what they want, they're taking action, but they're not getting the results they're looking for, it's one of those 5, there's a block, right? And then finally, if we tick the box and we go, great, tick, compelling vision, we know what we want, tick, we've got internal alignment, well, then it tends to be a strategy problem. And it's not a proven strategy. And this is the hallmark of high achievers. I speak to a lot of high achievers and they go, Calvin, I know where I want, I'm taking a heap of fucking action, but geez, I feel tired, I'm burnt out. And I'm a bit scared. I'm scared that I'm putting in 10 out of 10 effort, but I'm only getting a 2 or 3 out of 10 result. And I can't triple what I'm doing. I'm already doing too much. How do I go to the next level? And then the challenge is, I don't want to give up anything I'm already doing because I've got a certain level of success, but I know that I want to go to the next level. And so right now it's unsustainable.
Yeah.
And that comes from a place of fear. It definitely comes from a place of fear of failure, of like, if I fail, then who am I? Because people know me as this successful person. So who am I if I'm not the things that I've accomplished? If I'm not the trophies and the victories, well, who am I? So that's the first thing. The second thing, though, is to realize that, there's a great principle, and you're across this already, which is the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, which is, what are the couple of things that make the biggest impact? You don't know that until you've got the awareness of having already tried and failed many times and looking back to realize what's the differences that make the difference. Mm-hmm. And so that's where mentors come in. So when you look at the most successful people, the people that have achieved the highest levels of success, they don't do it on their own. They've found mentors in a particular field. And then they've gone, well, how do I turn their decades of experience into days? And that might be through coaching or through programs or through books or seminars. And it's about a strategy. So if we were using the example of someone that had a big goal on Monday and then by Friday shit hits the fan and they're off the rails, well, then is it a vision problem? Or if we're not really clear, people go, oh yeah, I know what I want. I go, okay, well, tell me, when you've achieved that goal, when you're at the finish line, so to speak, close your eyes and describe it to me. And they go, oh, I don't really know. It's like, well, then you don't have clarity on your vision. So, if you're Usain Bolt running the 100-meter men's final, you know what it's like to cross the finish line first. And you visualize crossing the finish line first. You can paint the picture in somebody's eyes for them by telling them what it sounds like, what it smells like, what it feels like. All of those things are going to be connected. And if someone's going, geez, that sounds like a lot of work. Yeah, no shit. It's a lot of work to have a compelling vision that if you're trying to create something that no one's done before, or you're trying to do something that at least you've never done before, the first step before anyone else in the world believes it is you've got to do it. And so if you feel like it's too much time to do that, you're not dreaming big enough anyway, because if you were dreaming big enough, you'd spend the time because it's going to be a worthy goal. So number one is the vision. But number two, maybe from a behavioral perspective, you've set up the game where it's unsustainable. So if the goal is I've got to meditate for an hour a day and train for 2 hours a day, and I've got to intermittent fast for 16 hours, and I've only got to have the carnivore diet, it's like, well, fuck, that's quite overwhelming for somebody that's currently not doing any of those things. So by the time you get to Thursday, Friday, the body's like, fuck, this is ridiculous. And then you blow it out on a weekend because you're just looking for a bit of respite. So you've got to set up the game for you to win. We tend to be great at giving advice to people, but terrible at giving that same advice to ourselves. And so what you've got to have is, again, the awareness to go, well, let's build disciplines, right? Like if right now I'm getting to Thursday and I'm really struggling, well, why am I struggling? Is it because I've got a pattern of self-sabotage? Is it because I've got limiting beliefs? Is it because of the fact that I've got emotions that I'm not working through? Maybe the reason why I've got a problem is, and I have an issue come Friday, is because I hate my job. And maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I get to a point where I'm just so over it, I've got no other option to escape than to get on the piss or to eat shitty food or to watch some TV. And that's my respite. It's got nothing to do with my goals. It's just that this environment that I'm in is so toxic that I need to I need an escape from that. I've got no better coping mechanisms. That's got nothing to do with your diet or your business. It's got to do with the relationship or the dynamic that you're in or whatever else is going on. So we've got to understand that if you think about this as a metaphor, there's a tree that everyone has in the garden. And most people look at the tree and they go, well, either I like the tree or I don't like the tree. But that represents the results of life. But underneath the surface is the root system. And the root system is our subconscious beliefs, our emotions, our value systems, our identity, our meta programs, all of those things. And so if you've got an apple tree and you want an orange tree, you don't just rip off all the fruit and hope that your apples grow. You have to remove the whole tree and plant a new tree, and it takes the time it takes to grow that tree to get to maturity. Most people are not aware of that, though. And so we look at what's called presenting problems in life, and we go, well, how do I fix these presenting problems instead of going a level deeper? If someone has a headache, that's a presenting problem, right? Why? Are you dehydrated? Do you have a brain tumor? Are you? Did you not have any caffeine? Are you in withdrawal from addiction? Right? Have you just smacked your head on the door? Like, there's a reason why you might have that headache, but depends on what the diagnosis is, determines the action. If you just take paracetamol, that might help in the moment. And if you're dehydrated, it's probably not going to help you to make you more dehydrated, right? And if you've got a brain tumor, you really need to do more than just taking painkillers, right? So it's important to understand what is the underlying issue here and how does that come to fruition? And you really can't see that yourself. You're not going to have that awareness because that's subconscious. So that's where having a coach, a mentor, someone comes into play. It makes a big difference. And Corey, I know you're a great coach. We like to think that we do some good coaching as well. But I saw this metaphor, this analogy, if you will, the other day. And I thought, fuck, this is so powerful. And most businesses don't get this, and most peak performers don't get this. It's in sport, it's self-evident, but most other industries don't get it. And the analogy was, imagine that you go to the Olympics and you're an elite athlete. And you go to the Olympics and you're an elite athlete, doesn't really matter what the sport is. And you go to one of your competitors and you're doing the warm-up and you're in the final. It's you versus them. And you go, hey, how's your preparation been? They go, yeah, really good. And you go, hey, who's your coach? Like, who are you working with? And they go, oh, no, I don't have a coach. You go, well, what do you mean you don't have a coach? No, I've just been doing this all myself. You go, I'm going to rip your face off. Like, I'm just going to eat you for breakfast. You don't have a coach. You got no one that's You got no one that's critiquing you. You got no one that's doing game tape. You've got no one that's analyzing your performance. You've got no one that's prepping you. You've got no one in your corner when you feel it's game over. Like, are you going into that final going, it doesn't matter. You can just wrap this up now and give me the medal. Because in order to get to the highest level of success, the arrogance that someone has to think that they're going to get there on their own is ludicrous. It's ludicrous.
I love
and
that.
Most people actually know that, but the reason why they don't have a coach is because the ego and the not wanting to fail, but more importantly, not wanting to fail, but not wanting to be seen to be failing. If you've got a coach and they're in your corner, they go, oh, that was shit, you've got that immediate feedback loop. And if you don't have the self-confidence to deal with that, you don't want to be held accountable, and you don't really want it, then you won't bring somebody on board because you know shit's going to happen.
That's bang, mic drop moment. That's fantastic. So true. Because without, like we're in the game of life, and you absolutely need someone there.
Yes.
Whether that be mentors, books, and I guess this is a great segue, people that don't, or maybe they're just beginning. I remember the first time I ever invested, and you probably remember as well. First time you invest in something other than like a free book or a $30 book or like some audio tape. That's terrifying. You're like, is this a scam? Am I getting ripped off? Like, who does this? This is so weird. Like, my friends think I'm a weirdo. Like, but then once you do it, then you start realizing, like, even if all of it's shit, there might be one sentence in it that has like completely changed your life. And that's that hunger. That's that, like, having that crazy goal that's going to help drive that. And I love that a lot. I really appreciate that one. That was good.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, segueing into that, people getting online mentors. Talk about the book we've got going on now. Like, when I worked with you briefly in 2021, there it is. Great cover, by the way. I saw that.
Thank you.
When you're on holiday, and you took those photos, beautiful, amazing. Reminds me of like Transformers when they're all in.
Yeah. You can call me a young Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah. Less fashionable, but no.
Yeah. And less money. And probably less emotional issues as well. I think he's been through the ringer a bit, but I still love him. He's great.
So the book, let's talk about that. So, like, you've written a book before. You already are an author. What is this book about, and what was the outcome? What was the driving factor of writing a book in the first place? 'Cause it's not easy, is it?
No, definitely not. So it's funny. I got asked the question last night, the same question, and I share a similar answer for you. So the book, first and foremost, is Wild Success. And it's how do you break through limitations and live the life of your dreams? And for me, it's really a collection of my best work for the last decade of working in personal transformation and human potential and working with 200,000 clients in 80 countries and learning how do you make a difference in people's lives. So it goes through the wild areas: wellness, income, love, lifestyle, direction. And then methodically, we go through each of the key distinctions. So how do you create a compelling vision? How do you create internal alignment across those key distinctions? And then what's the proven strategies that are going to create success for you? And we finish up with a sort of a map of the wild, if you will, a guide to helping you fulfill your potential. So that's really what the book is about. It's like our work. I've written 3 best-selling books already. The first 3 books, in many ways, were more of a marketing piece rather than a legacy or a teaching piece. We partnered with some great entrepreneurs in that journey, and so it was a collection of different ideas on a particular topic, but it wasn't a book from me about what I do on its own. So this is my first solo book, and as a result, the pressure is much, much bigger, but also I've really struggled. I started writing the book in 2017, and I wrote the first version of the book, and then I chucked that version out. And then I worked with a mentor and we rewrote the book. And then I had it ready to go for pretty much 2019. I was going to release it in 2020, and then COVID happened. And so then I went through and reworked the book again in 2020. And then it took some time for us to get it ready for production, and just a long process. So we're now in 2023, which is just ridiculous. I can't believe that's taken so long. But it's been a great lesson in sabotage, right? Like, and realizing, why do you hold yourself back? And one of the reasons why was that for me, I'm someone that's fantastic when I'm doing something like this, which is unscripted. It's in the moment. It's in flow. And as a result of that, I think that people are willing to give you, when you're talking in this way, they're willing to give you a little bit of goodwill, if you will, that if you say the wrong thing, or if you make the wrong reference, or if it's not perfect and polished, well, it's natural, it's unscripted, and therefore you're going to get something that's more organic. But you were to try to take a transcript of this conversation and put this into a book, and it would be unreadable. Like, people wouldn't take any time doing that, right? So for me,
not thought of that.
Yeah. So, and also, if you're going to write a book, the book's 40,000 words. Well, what do I believe that's worthy of talking about to somebody for 40,000 words? There's a lot of things that I believe, but am I willing to put them into writing? And am I willing to have them, like, the book is published now. It's there. So my kids will read this. My kids' kids will read this, and they'll go, what did granddad or what did dad think about the world and about life? And the hard thing is that this is a reflection of, in many cases, who I was, not even who I am, because I'm growing so much that you write something and you go, am I willing to stand behind that? Am I willing to have someone critique that? And that took me quite a bit of time, because most of the work that I do is focused at a certain level of depth, because we only have so much time with people. And to take a book and to go from start to finish and to condense that time, and then to be able to sort of synthesize all the key information to just a couple of key principles and core concepts, I thought would be very easy to do. It actually was tremendously difficult to do. And I'm not a great writer, so I've been tremendously blessed. Debbie, my writing partner in this journey, came on board, and I feel for her, because if she fully knew what was involved when she said yes, she probably wouldn't have said yes.
Oh.
No way. And we've got the launch this Sunday, and then we're doing a VIP party on Thursday, so I'll be able to see her then, and I'm going to try to get her to commit to the next book. But the reality is, it's just been a huge process about discovering who you are and what you want to do. And I wanted to create something I was proud of. And so it took a long time for me to get the book to a place where I felt like I was really proud of it. And I am really proud of it now. So the mission of the book started off as, how do I share my knowledge with people? And how do I share our methodology? And how do I try to put that in the hands of somebody that maybe is not going to come to one of my seminars or events or trainings or invest into coaching with me, but can take the concept and can run with it, right? That was the first thing. And then the second thing very much became, well, how do you help someone navigate through these challenges that we're dealing with in COVID? And then from there, once I had Alila, my little girl, it changed completely. And then it was really about, if dad's not here anymore, and hopefully, knock on wood, I'm here for a bloody long time. But if dad's not here anymore, well, then this can be a guide for her to live her best life. And this becomes a way of me leaving a legacy, both in terms of a global thing, but really, if no one picked up the book, it doesn't really matter. As long as Alila's got as a resource to know, hey, if my dad's not available, if my dad's not in my life for whatever reason, if something happens in my life and he's not there, well, I can turn to the pages of this book and I can think about what he would have done in these moments and how he went about going and accomplishing some of the challenges of his life. And so for me, that's really what it's about now. And if we can share this with people in the world, like, it's not lost on me that to work with us as an organization is not a small investment. And in a Western context, we're obviously in Australia and New Zealand, the UK, America, a lot of people that we work with have got plenty of money. And even if you're struggling a bit financially, we're still so blessed here. But for someone in Africa or India or the Middle East or just in different parts of the world, the idea of spending, hundreds of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars on themselves is just not something that's ever going to happen. So being able to get access to a book or even an ebook, we partnered with Amazon for the launch, and so people will be able to get it for 99 cents.
Yeah.
It's just unreal to me to have that level of impact and that legacy, and to hopefully, if they read it and they do something with it, inspire a generation of people to live their best life.
Yeah, I was literally just about to say that. I'm like, we're speaking so deeply about this book and the legacy it's going to leave, and how even if no one reads it, Layla's going to read it and get some great philosophies. But then I was just about to say the price of it, like, it's 99 cents. Like, you've spent since 2017 putting into it.
Yeah.
And it just shows your authenticity. You want people to, like what you said before, I think that this is the biggest takeaway so far for me is, it's not that we don't know that we don't know. It's the we know what we know and we're not doing anything about the things that we're doing wrong that we know about. And so like having something like this is you take away that financial barrier now. You take away that, like, it's literally, it's an ebook. You don't have to go to the shop anymore to pick up the book. You can just go online.
Yeah.
So no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, we've talked about quite a lot so far, mainly like really nothing about what you do at Wild Success, which is funny. It's all just the philosophies of what got you to where you are.
Yeah.
But I guess let's do that. Like what exactly is Wild Success? Like, we haven't even mentioned this. What do you guys do?
Well, look, all the things that we talked about, we do, but that's really what matters, right? It's not about what you write on a business card. It's about the impact that you can make in somebody's life. That's really what coaching or mentorship is about. So people ask me, well, what do you do for a living? And it's always difficult to try to explain that to people that are not in the personal professional development industry, right? So effectively, what I say to people normally is that we run a personal development company. But what that really means is for the last couple of decades, for the last decade, we've been doing training and events. And so we run personal development courses and programs, normally either in a live event environment or in a world summit, like a virtual summit. And we teach people principles and strategies and guides to improve the quality of their life. So what we've traditionally done is use tools and techniques of transformation. So we specialize in a technology called neurolinguistic programming, NLP. So that's one of the things that we do. We also do life coaching as well. We've got a certification school where if someone wants to become a coach or an NLP practitioner or master practitioner, then they can learn from us how to do that. And we certify people around the world. So that's our main sort of business model. And then I also do business strategy as well. So a lot of our clients that start a coaching business that want to become coaches, then want to make money as a coach. And in the last decade, we've helped over 100 people get to 6 figures a year in 12 months. We've helped 20 people get to $1 million and 5 people get to $10 million through our coaching and our trainings. And so now we've got that pretty well dialed in, and we obviously have made some money ourselves. And so we help businesses scale from 0 to 100,000 and then to $1 million. We've got a digital marketing agency. I've invested in a couple of different companies in the software and tech space as well. And so we do a ton of things. And so now, as a father and a husband, life is a little bit easier. And so we do a few home study programs. We do some immersion trainings as well. But most of the work that I'm doing today is in a mastermind called the Inner Circle. And so I've got a small group of high achievers. We work together every week. I do a weekly call, and that's built around mindset, business, peak performance, or lifestyle design. And then there's 2 levels of that. They can either work with me in a small group or they work with me one-on-one, and we check in as part of that process. So that's the Inner Circle. That's my project at the moment that we're growing and building. That gives you a bit of an insight.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. You know, everyone listening, they might be, who is this guy? Like, how do I get up to it? While I was speaking, I had this thought come to me. What are some of the new limiting beliefs that you're having to crush now? Because you're obviously at a new level now, father, author, reaching greater impacts now with not just employees, but then the people that you're helping design their lives and earn a living through creating their own business. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of people say, successful people don't have problems. And what does Tony say? He's like, the only people that don't have problems are in the ground, right?
Yeah. So better quality problems and bigger problems.
Yeah. So I'm interested just to hearing, at these next few levels up, what are some of the new things you've personally had to go through? And like, I assume you've got mentors and coaches, and what does that look like?
What a fucking great question, Corey. So I find that there are different stages of the game, and I'll just talk about this in a business context. So in the first couple of years, when you're trying to hit 100,000 or $1 million, there's certain challenges. And then it's very different challenges when you're trying to do $1 million a year to $1 million a month, right? And so when you get to $10 million, it's a different game again, right? And there's different things that work for you and different things that break. The hard thing is that if you're an entrepreneur and you're the CEO and the business owner and the face of that business, in many cases, the things that make you successful at one level are the complete opposite of the things that make you successful at the next level. And that's something that I've struggled with, right? So in the very beginning of the process, we talked about this already, about ownership and control and driving projects. What's made me successful in making my first sort of $10, $20 million, probably around $15, $17 million now. what's made me successful in that is being sort of this sort of force of personality, right? And driving projects and making things happen and being the figurehead behind doing a lot of great things. But to go from 15 mil to being able to do 15 mil every single year, right? To do that, well, that requires different, right? That requires multiple people that can do those things at a high level. And then it's not about me being a bottleneck, but rather me being able to advise or support them. So there's a real paradigm shift where instead of you doing 80% of the work and 20% of the advisory, you do 20% of the work and 80% of the advisory. But that really becomes about finding great people, training and supporting them, sharing and communicating a vision. So, for me, the big challenge, I guess, I'm working through at the moment is trying to find a harmony. I don't believe in balance, but finding a harmony between having the things that I want right now in my life and having the things that I want to have in my life long-term moving forward. And I think there's always a trade-off that you make with that. And particularly being now a father, I'm aware that I've only got a couple of years with my little girls before they're no longer little girls anymore and they're off doing their own thing. So I want to live a certain life long-term. And I know that there's certain things you've got to put in place, especially financially, to live that life. But I'm also really aware of the fact that I don't want to sacrifice the present for that long-term payoff, because in the long term, I'm not going to have my little girls. So we're designing our life. We're in the process of sort of restructuring our business and our life so that we can be more set up as a family to be able to do that. And I guess the challenge for me now is that I've spent the better part of a decade operating at a certain level, driving projects at a certain level, working a certain number of hours, trying to make things happen. And now I'm in a very different phase of life. And so the challenge that I've got at the moment is just really going through that transition, is finding what the new version of productivity and performance looks like, finding a way to get clear on what the new compelling vision and reality is. You really do become a different person when you have kids. And so I guess I'm starting from a paradigm of success, but I'm also starting a brand new chapter of my life where I'm 2 years into being a dad, and I'm still figuring out who I am as a dad and trying to figure out what that life looks like as well. So it's nice to be at the beginning of that journey again, and deal with, I've convinced myself that success and fulfillment and accomplishment is a certain thing for a decade, and that's been amazing. Now I'm sort of peeling back the layers of that onion a little bit and identifying, well, what are the things that really matter to me and what are the things that don't? And sometimes we convince ourselves that things matter when they don't really matter. And then when you unpack that, you go, okay, well, at the end of the day, what fucking matters and what doesn't matter? Like, for example, we got the book launching on Sunday. And the last 3 books that I've had have all been international #1 bestsellers. Now, admittedly, that was with a group of people, like I had co-authors, so everyone was writing. I'm just doing this on my own now, so it's a bit harder. And in the past, they were also like free launches where people could get the copy for free. Now it's 99 cents. It's not a big deal, but it's definitely a big difference. So it's okay. There's a bit of pressure to try and hit certain targets. And so that's why we're doing a summit. And so as a high achiever, I want to hit those targets and I want us to have a global bestseller. And I'm putting in as much effort and energy in doing podcasts and just trying to get the word out there so that I know I go to sleep at night on Sunday night knowing I did everything I could to be successful. But then I was also speaking to my wife about this the other day. She said, how are you feeling about the launch? I go, yeah, I'm feeling really good, but I'm still not 100% about it because I don't know how many people I need. Like, I don't know how many books you need to sell on game day to win, right? Because I've not done this strategy before. So if I need to sell 10 books, easy. But if I need to sell 100 or 1,000 books, I'll probably be able to sell a couple of 100 books, maybe even 1,000 books. But I don't know how many I need to sell on the day to be able to hit the targets that we want to have, right? I don't know what that data point is. So you don't know if you're just dramatically overshooting this with your effort or if you're doing it. And I think that, by the way, if I can give a lesson and a piece to everybody that's allowed me to be really successful, and I say that with real humility because I believe, we should celebrate what we've already accomplished, is that no matter what's happened in my life, I've always believed that if I was to do it again, I'd be better at it. And so in many cases, the first times that I do things, it's not successful. But what I do is I pick myself up, I learn, I enjoy the process of getting beat because it's great feedback, and then I swing again. So for me, I know that this will be a successful launch, but here's the thing. I know that the next book I will launch will be way more successful because I'll learn from this process. And then the book after that will be more successful and again. But the thing that I was talking to Ash about the other night was like, hey, if this becomes a global bestseller and people are fucking losing their shit about it and it's amazing and it's an incredible thing and, you know, it blows up, wonderful. But here's the thing that matters. On Monday morning, Alila, my little girl's going to wake up and she is not going to give a fuck if dad is a global best-selling author, if he writes a book. She doesn't even care if I can read, right? Or write.
Yes.
She just cares that I'm a dad. And when you realize at the end of the day that, hey, yes, it's great to have a book that's successful. And yes, I want to have a successful book, both for me and for the world. But at the end of the day, the people that matter the most, my wife, my daughter, don't make a damn bit of difference to them, whether I got the book or not. When you realize that, you actually, yeah, it doesn't really matter that much. Let's be clear. We're not brain surgeons. We're not actually saving people's lives on the operating table. This is just trying to help people and motivate them in some way, shape, or form. So, at the end of the day, it matters, but it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, very wise. That Marcus Aurelius has said this as well. This has been something that the Stoics have believed and talked about for thousands of years. Like in 100 years from now, the people you won't even be around unless you've created a legacy like what you're trying to do. But I think another thing that really presented itself to me just then, which I know we're going to wrap up very shortly, but uncertainty is still around, and this process of personal development and pursuing goals and overcoming limiting beliefs, it doesn't matter where you are. And I think people use that as a reason not to do it. They're uncertain, they're fearful. But like literally now you've achieved 10 years of some success in your own version, and now you're literally starting again. You're getting these same feelings, you're getting this same uncertainty. So it's a very important lesson for everyone listening that it doesn't really matter where you are or who you're at. You're going to experience that uncertainty, and you pushing through that is what's going to get you on the other side.
100%. Tony always says this, and I try to live by this, which is that you've got to bring certainty in yourself to the uncertainty in the world. And, that's why I started by saying at the very beginning of this, that you've got to have an absolute fucking belief in yourself, which is that, hey, it doesn't matter what's happening. I'm going to find a way or make one. One of my favorite quotes is from Hannibal, which is that you're talking about transversing the Swiss Alps in the war. And he talked about this idea that, we will either find a way or make a way. And I thought, wow, that's so powerful, right? Having that level of conviction, which is, doesn't matter what's in front of me. It doesn't matter if we win or lose. We're going to find a way or we're going to make a way. I always say to people, it's going to take everything that you've got, but you've got what it takes. And if you're certain about what's about to happen in your life, one, you're completely ignorant, because we're human beings like ants on this giant planet with a molten core spinning around the atom. Like, what the fuck? Like, there's no certainty. And someone that thought that there was certainty, just think back to 2019 in January. You had plans for the year, and then by March, the world is shut down and it's game over. So you have no idea what's about to happen. We've got no concept. So all you've got to do is live for the moment, set big goals, but understand things are going to change. And just to believe in yourself, to say, hey, I'm a good person. I've got good stuff inside of me. I'm going to find a way to make it happen. And if I don't, I'll learn and I'll be better next time.
Amazing. I love it. And just as we're wrapping up now, this summit you've got the book launch on the 23rd, which is Sunday, right?
Yep.
And what's the summit? Is that something happening next week? Is this on the launch? Is this a...
Yeah. So the book launch and the summit are side by side. So it's also happening on Sunday, the 23rd as well. Depending on when this episode drops, obviously you'll either be able to join us for the summit or not. Irrelevant, if you go to wildsuccessthebook.com, wildsuccessthebook.com, or our website, wildsuccess.global, we'll have resources there. If you missed the summit, you can catch a replay and stuff. Basically, the summit is two things. One, it's basically a live event of the book. So I'm going to be taking an audience. We've just got, I think, about 1,300 people from 10 countries going to be joining us. It's going to be an amazing day. It's part sort of motivational seminar as well as a party. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll be talking about the book. We're going to be going through some of the best principles and sharing case studies and showing people how to live their best life. And then on the launch day itself, thanks to our partners at Amazon, you'll be able to get a copy of the book for 99 cents. There's a limit on what that looks like, though. You've got to be able to get access to it on the launch day as well. So that's on Sunday. And you'll be able to grab a copy. We'll have all the links for everybody as part of that. So if they register, they get a copy of the summit. We're doing, it's like $1,200 worth of gifts and prizes. So they've got, obviously, the discounted copy of the book. There's a workbook to go along with the physical book. We've got a 30-day mindset motivation program called Breakthrough to Success. And they actually also get 2 weeks of free mentoring with me in our Inner Circle program, which we mentioned earlier today. So there's a lot at stake to be able to help us get the best chance to succeed, but also to be able to give back to the community that's been so good to us. So that's what the summit's all about.
Also, I was just thinking about how am I going to get this out at the same time, but it'll probably just be passed. But what I'll do is I'll definitely relay this information as well out to my followers, and I'll be there. So
we appreciate you.
No, it's been an amazing conversation. So many little snippets here. Goes much deeper as well. This is just the surface for everyone listening. Calvin has obviously got more than 10 years experience in this field. So, you know, if you're thinking about working with him, 100% jump on board.
Thank you.
If not, 99 cents to the book when you sign up.
Easy. 100%. 100%.
Awesome. I think we'll wrap it up there. Everyone knows where to find you. I'm going to put all the links in the description anyway. But do you have any final parting messages for any of the listeners, or do you think we covered it?
Look, I think we've definitely covered plenty, and I've loved this conversation. So thank you so much for having me. I guess the final thing that I would say to people is that, you know, we only get one shot at this game, and so many people will play a small game because they're worried about the good opinion of others. And I think that the world needs more people that are courageous, that are willing to swing for the fences. They're going to go after what they want, that are prepared to live life on their own terms. And so if there's one thing that I could wish for everybody, which would be to do that, is to live life on your own terms and to go after what you hope and what you aim for. So if the book helps you to do that, obviously that's wonderful, but you can make a start on that even without the book. And if anyone needs anything, we're only a phone call or a message away, and just shoot me a DM and we'd love to connect.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Calvin. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Love the conversation.
Appreciate it, bro.
Thanks, mate. Have a good one.